Hey there, it's Mike Langford. Welcome to another episode of the Modern Financial Advisor Podcast. On this episode of the show, Jud Mackrill, co-founder of Milemarker, is with me for a conversation about getting the most out of all that amazing technology your firm has invested in over the years. As you'll hear Jud share, one of the biggest challenges facing financial firms today is true ownership of their data. Data about their clients, prospects, and their business is living in a variety of systems that don't always talk to each other that well. That limits the firm's ownership of the data and their ability to run their business effectively and serve their clients to the fullest. Jud and the Milemarker team, they're on a mission to solve that problem. Now, before we get to the conversation with Jud, please make sure you take a moment to subscribe to the Modern Financial Advisor podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Amazon, the YouTubes, and wherever you like to get your podcast jam on. And if you have a question or a suggestion for a topic or a guest, hit me up. I'm basically at Mike Langford everywhere on the internet, or you can shoot an email to podcast@finservmarketing.com. Okay, let's jump in the data lake with Jud Mackrill. Well, Jud Mackrill, so wonderful to see you. Welcome to the Modern Financial Advisor podcast.
Mike, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. So it's always wild. This is a first in a very long time for me. You and I have never spoken together with each other since ever, like before today. I had a prep call with your co-founder, Kyle, and now it's just you and me hanging out.
It's just us together. Yeah, no, looking forward to it, man. Yeah, this will be fun.
Exactly. Well, so it's really funny. So one of the things I always do in my prep calls, and I do encourage people we have, is like, you shoot the breeze about a variety of stuff, but also you kind of get a feel for like the person's, their what makes them laugh. I always jokingly say, like, how much work is this person going to be as a guest? Like, am I going to have to really like pull questions out of? So I'm excited about this. This is like, I woke up today, a little bit of roulette happening for me. So we'll see. And I'll tell everybody how much work or not how much work you were after this.
All right. That's fair. That's fair.
Well, all right. Well, let's dive into it. Let's kick things off with a little bit of a 60-second elevator pitch from Milemarker, because I suspect many of the people in the audience aren't aware of it. It's a relatively new company. So let's dive into it. Hit us. What's Milemarker?
Yeah, Milemarker is the next generation platform for financial advisors. And what it does is it allows you to own your data and control your destiny by connecting all the systems of technologies that you use today, or maybe sort of use, and you're not utilizing as much as you could. And so you bring that together. Now you have your own data lake with Milemarker. You own your data, and then you can start to analyze that data through third-party tools like Power BI, Tableau, etc. Or we put that into a synthetic layer that allows you to see rich insights and then share them with all interested parties. In fact, you can add clients and do client portals. You can have advisor portals. You can do transition portals. All of that powered by Milemarker, along with workflows that help you simplify how work actually gets done, and then also bring together things like investments and all that kind of stuff. So you can actually start to simplify your business in a world where it generally is getting way more complicated, and you have to have these like crazy org charts to understand how everything works. We make that so you can actually focus and move forward and compound in a really awesome way. And I'm loving it. We're having a ton of joy just in serving people and getting to know these businesses. Actually, and my favorite part is this past week, I got to see one of my clients who actually, because of our technology, can then open up another business line. Wow. And start to like compound how they're growing, because they now have their own API, they have their own data, they have their own experience, and they have advisors that are super happy with it. And it's all because we started building this thing a few years ago. So it's pretty cool.
That's fascinating. I want to dig into that, see if I can kind of pull some threads there and kind of let people who are listening or watching think a little bit more about what's possible. Because you used a new term, and I say new because honestly, I'll put a stake in the ground. It's probably only the last 3 years that the term data lake has entered the lexicon for financial advisors, right? It really, it just all of a sudden became a big thing. I've been talking to lots of people over the last couple of years, and you started to hear like, hey, we need to, future-proof our firm, and also, we need to own the data. Who owns the data? It's bubbling into an awareness. And so that term data lake of like all of your data in your firm is centralized and you own it and you have access to it, and now you can use that data to do
Yeah.
other things. It's really exciting. Without giving away too much of the secret sauce, what are some of the things that, you mentioned you met with a client who's able to kind of start looking at doing other things.
Mhm.
What are some of the things that you think get surfaced by suddenly having access to all your data in a central repository?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first off, you can now start to actually understand number one what you have, right? So we have all this information, and I think there's this big delta. You have like case studies that come out from Fidelity and others that they're like, hey, advisors are this, and most of
Mm.
them are not profitable in these categories. And then you're kind of looking at your own business, and you're like, well, how much of mine is?
Yeah.
What's my real situation? So fundamentally, we're able to help you surface that right away
Yeah.
because we can bring that together. We have a really great team of engineers. But we're building this more to be it's a multi-tenant experience for us. And then it's a multi-tenant experience for you. So
Mm.
what that means is you may have one LLC, great. But most of the people we serve usually have maybe one or two,
Mhm.
or you're serving other advisors that might have their own DBA and they might have all these different rules. And you've been trying to cram all these rules into these third party systems that don't really have the ability to flex. And you're just kind of constantly, compromising the way that your business runs to fit these other third party tools. With Milemarker, we actually bring that together so you can actually bring all of your rules into the cloud, have unique identifiers around all of them. So Mike is an advisor in Austin, Texas, and he has business with us here, here, and here. He has these unique fee schedules. He has these other advisors that work with him. He has an insurance practice over here that we need to connect to. He has a CPA relationship that we need to connect to. All of that can be done through the power of the data that we have. And then it can scale with you and scale with the home office. And so that when you log into Milemarker, which might be under somebody else's brand, under somebody else's domain, you now have the ability to have a simple way to synthesize everything about your business and then to take action with the home office or a third party that simplifies your life. You can do it in a matter of seconds versus writing an email versus using some super complicated thing. It can directly integrate into the system it actually needs to, all because the data is right there in front of you.
That's pretty amazing. What's you're still in, I would call it startup mode. You may feel that you're more out of like we're fully running 99, percent of the way there. But
Mhm.
it's an early stage company. One of the things I love to dig into is like, what was the origin story for this thing, right?
Yeah.
So like, how did this come to be? Because it from what you were just articulating, you clearly have deep domain expertise in the space. You spent a lot of time in the space. You understand
Mm.
how every advisory businesses work, what the opportunities are, what the challenges
Yeah.
are. Love to hear about what your origin story for Milemarker was, and also like we're supposed to have Kyle on the show, but unfortunately, but
Yeah.
like I'm always curious, like how do people come together, right? As
Yeah.
co-founders, like the old story, Roy and Walt Disney. Well, they were brothers; they were easy to come together. But then you hear the
Mhm.
Steves, and Bill and so forth. So,
Yeah.
how did you guys come up with Milemarker? What was what you saw, and like
Yeah.
how did you get together?
Yeah. The origin story of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
That's right.
So no, yeah, this is us. So I got started in 2004 at a company called Orion, and I was number 20 or so in our uh, group of people, and we were just working to build solutions off of. We had our largest client was our company down the hallway, which is
Yeah.
a TAMP, and so we were built to serve a third party asset management platform called CLS Investments. But then we started to grow, and I did a couple of years of grad school and came back full time, and then took over onboarding all these new customers. Our technology was pretty. It was very much like running off our own servers and doing this remoting, and it was slow. And we worked to evolve that. Along the way, we started to integrate more and more stuff, and getting to work with Eric, who's the founder of the firm, was really excellent because he continued to push the boundaries of where we could go with the technology. And then that led to a spirit of like trying to solve problems and designing things for our customers. And I bootleg, design software onto my crappy Dell laptop at the time, and like started to build things. And we moved the company forward, and a lot of those things became products inside of our universe. And then I got to be deeply involved with a lot of these customers and key parts of their business: the creative plannings, the Mariners, the Mercers, the Focus Financials, all these really interesting companies that were growing quickly. Edelman Financials, another one, where we're working and solving problems for them. And then I realized personally, there's so many more problems here to solve, and we are just one part of a whole. How are these companies really going to break through the ceilings that exist, that are part of their technology and part of their lack of ability to connect this stuff? In 2014 or so, we created an event called Fuse at Orion.
Oh yeah.
And so I'd taken over the marketing in like early 2011 or something like that. And so one of the things that we did is we created an integration event to help celebrate our own API at Orion. And we open sourced our client portal and invited a lot of our friendly people in the industry, the Money Guy Pros, the eMoneys, all these different companies, some of which are now part of these other bigger companies. Yeah. Redtail is another example. We invited them all to come, and we rented out a ski house in Park City and said, guys, come on over. Let's figure out what we can build together. And then we turned it into like a whole event. And it was something I found a lot of joy in helping run. And then as I realized later, I think it was kind of the foundation for us to do something that's more transformational for the whole industry. I left Orion in 2015, created a consultancy agency type business, and sold that to Carson. Kyle and I had been friends from that event from Fuse.
Okay.
And so we got to know each other there. We realized we had a lot of similar values. We realized we saw same problems that were not necessarily getting better. Everyone ultimately had to focus and keep their eyes on their own paper. Meanwhile, there's a lot of things that we needed to fix at a macro level. So I sold my business to Carson, went in there, and the opportunity with that was, for my partner and I, we got to sit on the other side of the table, and say, all right, now we have all the technology, now we can have the agency. Let's go ahead and make the decisions. We were able to, have the business have a ton of success, and really to, make the brand stronger, make the technology stronger, and really to drive deeper value for that firm. But at the same time, it was, creatively every day thinking about the opportunity cost of not sitting in the other side, helping drive the whole industry forward. So Kyle and I kept up to speed. He had joined Science and was leading revenue there. And, that's very much a deep partnership on Salesforce. For me, I'm, more anti-establishment, not that I'm against Salesforce, but like, I think that there's so much more creativity that we can have with our industry. And at the same time, seeing what's happening with cloud computing and some of the really good things that are out there. I think the power of Snowflakes and Databricks and all these other companies that are fundamentally reshaping how technology can be done, and realizing that who is going to help these advisors actually unlock this, that's us. And we're going to help transform how integration has worked historically, both for the technology companies, but especially for the wealth management companies that are working to become a technology company in and of themselves.
Yeah.
And that's where Milemarker comes in. That's a little bit of our origin story.
I love it. I'm super appreciative of you sharing that, because one of the knocks or perceived knocks on our industry is how slow the industry moves, right? You'll hear that people talk about like, oh, it's a laggard. It's always, and some of that is true, right? Some new technologies will roll out faster in other industries because they're not regulated, right? And that's really the big deal. It's not because we're stubbornly like, hey, we don't want to embrace new tech. It's like, hey, if something goes wrong with our tech, it affects people's lives in a big, big way. It can really negatively affect a firm, right? Before we put something on an advisor's desktop, we need to make sure it's bulletproof. We need to make sure that it's going to be okay with FINRA and the SEC, right? Like it's important, right? So with that being said, what was fascinating to just listen to you share there is that I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said you were like employee number 20 at Orion, like in 2004, which 2004 seems like yesterday and a million years ago, all at the same time. But it's fascinating. Like that's a really short amount of time, 20 years. And now Orion is this massive company, right? And you kind of hit on some of the ways just that the industry evolved quickly, right? I mean, what I think is fascinating about when I think back to 2004, these things didn't exist, right? Nobody was
Right.
walking around with a smart. We had Blackberries and
That's
stuff
right.
like that.
The
And
BlackBerry thumb,
yeah. But more importantly, the way for APIs weren't a big deal, right? So that
Right.
think about it's really hard for people to think about like data sharing. Web 2.0 was when people talk about that was like, hey, it became interactive. We could interact with things, but also apps started being able to talk to each other. The concept of an API became a thing that became in popular ethos, right? People started to understand what an API was. I don't have to write everything. I can now take data out of another system, incorporate it and repackage it and do some things with it. And then when advisors started getting, the smartphones and so forth, the advisors started realizing, look, I want technology that looks and feels like the apps I get on my phone. I don't want this complicated pain in the butt stuff to use. This legacy enterprise software, right? I want to be able to use stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you must have, having had a front row seat to this, you must have seen this evolution, right? It's been a pretty wild ride for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, I think the kind of primary systems that people have used have changed a little bit. We were definitely part of the move to CRM.
Yeah.
CRM is the center. I think at one point in time, a fun fact is I think Orion was the top reseller of Salesforce for financial services, at least for wealth as a category. We led kind of in that way, and it was a great way for us to deploy our software in a much better manner and to further develop our API. But then that then shifted to planning planning plus wealth,
Yeah.
plus portfolio accounting system was kind of a primary. And I think, in the same way, I think your data is going to be at the center of your future client experience. I think your data and shaping all of that is going to fundamentally be the center of that hub. And I don't know of a way out after that. I think because you'll have your own independent data warehouse. Every one of our customers has their own independent data model. And then they have the ability to control and connect all kinds of different things. And we're seeing some of those systems from 2004. We connect every day because the reality is they haven't changed.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem. And that's okay because we understand that. We know it. We make it modern.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to worry about why this is still an FTP site that is out there. I'm like, that's fine. We update the credentials once a year or whatever, however often we have to. But like, it's working for you now.
Yeah.
Whereas it was broken before.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. There's an element of like, I was about to say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But like, look, sometimes you get a piece of technology and hey, this tech works. It just, the negative with it is it doesn't talk to the other things very good. Right.
Yeah.
One of the parallels when I was doing the prep call with Kyle that immediately jumped to mind when he's describing Milemarker. And as I was poking around on your website, was like, oh, you know what this feels like? This feels like Zapier. That many small businesses and enterprises use to connect a whole bunch of different web apps and trigger some automations, right? So for those of you who aren't familiar with what Zapier is, you can go check it out. I'll have it linked up in the show notes. But imagine a scenario if somebody comes on your website, they fill out a form, and then this little piece of technology in the background says, oh, when that form's filled out, go tell ChatGPT to generate a quick summary of that person's business, right? If they entered their company name, go check it out, and then take that research and plug it into my CRM and then notify me via Slack that, hey, there's a new record. Check it out. Somebody filled out the form. Here's some research about them. It's kind of like, you can do all sorts of crazy stuff with Zapier, right?
Yeah.
So I know it's not a direct parallel, definitely not a one-to-one for what you guys are doing, but this is be kind of fun. Like what are some core examples for like, that might make the advisor or the executive listening or watching go, oh, that would be really useful at our firm. Like, what are some of the things you're seeing that people do with
Well,
Milemarker?
yeah, I mean, so advisors, some trade, some don't. How do you actually do a trade and without putting people in through the training and all the management of all of that? When we provide simple ways for you to request trades, to change models, to run bills, to change, to collect and say, my client wants to buy a boat. I'd like to have X dollars out of their account. Can you make this all happen without the advisor having to become the technician? We make that all happen. A lot of
Mm.
that's creating direct automations inside of the core systems, and some of it's really just providing everything in a succinct way for the operational team. And we found that most of our customers are able to keep a slim team operationally
Yeah.
because we've added so much more efficiency on top of what they're doing. So their business is fundamentally leaner and fundamentally more valuable because of this whole thing. What are the things that are actually approved by compliance, both for
Yeah.
marketing, for wealth management? How do I think about my whole experience, both in terms of investment management and like planning based solutions? We have a lot of friends in the solutions business, whether it's Holistic Plan or wealth.com or any of these different things that are really out there. And I think driving meaningful experience
Yeah.
for advisors. The worst thing that can happen, and having been on both sides of the house now, is you have a really wonderful solution. It goes to a large advisory firm that you feel like should be an amazing client, and then you have terrible adoption.
Yeah.
Because that's the reality is you're getting some sort of PDF
Yeah.
that tells you, hey, buddy, this is approved. Please use this.
Yeah.
Use Holistiplan. And you're like, how the heck do I use Holistiplan in this context?
Yeah.
So what we do is we help bring that to a much more meaningful, integrated way that allows you to fundamentally better adopt all of it and to give insight to the home office to say, hey, we're not talking enough about this really cool transformative solution that we have to help with the taxes.
Yeah.
And so that's the sort of thing that we get to see happen firsthand. And then at the business level, we're seeing, private equity is obviously very involved now in our industry, whereas it wasn't 10 years ago, not,
Yeah.
not to this degree. And so every advisory firm needs to start thinking about, even if they're not there yet, what happens when we have a board, when we have a private equity company that is helping to make us better? What are the pieces of data they need to know about our business every day? Or, every 90 days is
Yeah.
how it's going to be asked out of the gate. Why don't we do this for it every day? So it's not a fire drill. Here's everything you need to know about our business. Boom, right here.
Yeah.
Log in, tell me, help me see what I need to see, help me reinvent my business so I'm more profitable and have a higher NPS score, all these kind of key performance indicators. How do you help me do that? Our system actually delivers that to people, and it's super fun. It's fun for them to see. It's fun for me to hear back from our customers say, hey, just did a board meeting. It was amazing. We really unlocked these really, really cool new insights with our data. And, we play then a small part in that. We just help connect it all.
I love it. I love it. I think it's such an important thing. The old, you need to work on your business, not just in your business. And advisors are no different than any other business owners, right?
Mhm.
Very often it's easy to get swept up in the day to day and not take that big, call it a 30,000 foot level. Like, how's the business doing, right? Can I just
Yeah.
look like, how are we doing? Are the things that I am working on, are they having a positive impact on the growth and the profitability and the valuation of the company? Um, Really, really important stuff. Um, you know, One of the other things you mentioned just now was the adoption rate for certain technologies. And I'm so
Yeah.
thrilled that you brought that up because I've had experience with this with companies that sell into the advisory firms and wealth management firms. And that's a real problem, right?
Oh,
Because
for sure.
I can show you technology and you can go, this is awesome. I'm going to use this. I can understand the value and I'm willing to pay for that technology.
Mhm.
But the reality is you were already busy. You were already using, at 100% capacity of your time, if you will, even if some of it's wasted time, but like you're already doing stuff. And so it can be very difficult for an advisor or a team member at an advisory firm to become adepts at every piece of technology that's on their desktop, right?
Yeah.
And to have to do all the things. And so very often what ends up happening is adoption wane is or just never takes off or is really small because it's hard, right? Like I've
Yeah.
I've got this financial planning software, I've got this CRM software. Now you're telling me about this Holistiplan thing I got to learn how to do, as using that as an example, right? It's just so much versus being able to like, hey, all right, let's make sure they all talk to each other. Let's like lessen the burden on
Hmm.
adoption curve and so forth. Um, One problem, and this is where you and the Milemarker team come in, is most of the folks, most of these RIAs are really small businesses, right? Even
Yeah.
the ones that were like, hey, that's a pretty good size RIA. They got $10 billion AUM.
Hmm.
You know, the average RIA firm has like 5 advisors and less than 10 employees. A $10 billion RIA might have 25 employees, right? We're not talking, large companies. These are SMBs. So they certainly don't have a dedicated tech team.
Hmm.
One of the things that jumps out to me and I'm excited about is Milemarker is not a DIY service. So it's not like, hey, I'm buying this technology. And I think this is where we're getting towards solving that adoption problem, where you're not just
Yeah.
saying, click, download, figure it out by watching a few of these YouTube videos. You guys are actually coming in and doing it for them, working with the team, right? To help them get up. This is
Yeah.
not a DIY type solution.
Yeah, no. I mean, we are productizing as much as we possibly can to make it
Yeah,
scalable, really for ourselves. But for
sure.
you as the advisory firm, you're not going to have to know how to do these cloud configurations and things
Yeah,
like that. And engineering to reduce compute, and helping make sure that you have enough RAM and servers and all this. Like, I think a lot of times people, and somebody's asking me like, who are successful CTOs in our space? I'm like, man, I don't know that a lot of CTOs that have come into wealth management have had an opportunity to have success, because they come in, they're like, I think I went through the wrong door, because I'm being asked to deal with all of my people's computers and
yeah,
firewalls and all this other crap that's like not at all into building something net new for our space. I mean, there are a few that have had success, but largely I think a lot of it gets misbranded, and it's really an IT role inside of a company. And even then, those individuals are not necessarily supported in a way that they can actually drive meaningful change. I talked to my friend Stefan Ludlow over at Cerity, and we talk on that, and they're like a really great example of a firm that's doing a lot of really tremendous stuff, but because he's built a team around it. And for us, we give people a comparable bandwidth to his team, but also the endless potential of your ability to take this data and move it forward, because we'll support you. We give you tools, and we're creating more and more tooling, so you actually can build out your dashboards, you can build out your workflows and all this kind of stuff with things that we're rolling out here now. But largely, we're not leaving you on an island. You're here in a way that you're going to be able to get the progress you need without having to inherit new FTEs to do it. And
yeah,
the people that you have are going to be a lot more proactive in their posture, because now they're going to be looking at data, and they're going to be looking at proper caseloads and understanding where your workflows need to continually improve. Whereas a lot of times is you're running a triage center before.
yeah,
And that's a fundamental shift that we're able to see advisors take, or
yeah.
advisory firms take.
It's so important because I think I've just dealt with it so many times where advisors get a bad rap for being like not technical. It's not that they're not technical. Listen, they know how to use a lot of technology, right? And they're
Hmm.
smart people, right? But like all of us, it can be overwhelming to just try to figure out how everything works. I mean, heck, we produce podcasts and video for our company, and every once in a while I'm struggling with like, why isn't this thing working, right? Like we're in
Yeah.
this all this tech stuff all the time, and I'm frustrated by it, and I spend half a day trying to like talk to people at whatever company, trying to like, why is your solution bunking out at me or something
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
So, and same thing happens for advisors. So having experts come in and kind of do it for them, but also, walk alongside them as they come up to speed
Yeah.
is always helpful. I want to dive into something that I'm sure many advisors are curious about. It comes up a lot on shows. It's AI, right? Artificial
Hmm.
intelligence is, very similar to data lake. It's becoming a really popular topic that we have to talk about anytime we're talking
Yeah.
about technology for the advisory firm. And during the prep call, Kyle said that AI is only as good as the data in the models. And I thought that's spot on. And I think, he's not the first to say it. but it's important for us to talk about. So AI is reliant on the information it has to reference. And the way to put it for advisors to truly get it is like, imagine a Monte Carlo model that only had the past 10 years of data in it for the S&P 500. It would
Yeah.
not be that useful for your clients, right? Yeah. so,
Mhm.
how do you and the team at Milemarker think about ways to avoid the garbage in, garbage out pitfall? And it may not just be AI, but I think it's particularly important
Mhm.
in AI as these models are going to be important, and advisors are going to start relying on
Yeah.
them very soon, right?
Yeah.
But you must see it in other areas also as you're connecting systems. Like, is this good information coming in here, or is it bad
Right.
information?
Right. So yeah, there's two different approaches we take, but overall, all advisory firms need to own their data,
Yeah,
because you need to have your data in a way that you can control it, you can actually protect it, you can then use that for powering your own AI.
yeah,
And so we do that fundamentally out of the box. Everybody has that go. So that's where we sit there right now. We also have a services business that actually helps you with the data hygiene, whether that's alternatives business or your fee and revenue business, or it's your general data and across the board.
yeah.
We have engineers that will work with you to help you make sure you understand true north on all of this information, and what's accurate, make sure it's reflected properly from a go forward basis. And then that allows you then to harness AI with that data confidently. And I think there's going to be more and more happening with data hygiene and AI in the future, but you have to be careful not to have a lot of generative stuff in this as well,
Yeah.
because it'll start to hallucinate and add things that are just not there.
Yeah.
And so like that's this whole new moment, and that moment is it's right now, and then it's going to change. And so the I think about it a lot, like I've got these paddles back behind me. And so I think
Okay.
about rowing as kind of a metaphor a little bit, but like the river is running fast, and it's going to be running faster, especially as you get closer to the ocean. And you need to jump in, but you also need to know what kind of vessel you need. And that's
Yeah.
really the big challenge that everybody has. And so our whole thing is we're powering your progress along the way. You're going to be an AI company, not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Right.
And how you do that is going to be through a partnership with us. We're
Yeah.
going to help power you to do that well, with confidence and totally with compliance. Your compliance team is going to feel confident because it's going to be super clear how this all works and how your data is secure, and all of that. But that's exactly where we're built for this moment, to help companies transcend this next phase.
I love it. I love it. I think it's so. I love that you mentioned the whole like AI can hallucinate there, because it's not truly a brain, right? It's not truly an
Yeah.
artificial brain. But it is still trying to learn, right? Like it's based on like a lot of, if this happens, then this is the logical thing. We
Hmm.
talk about when you ask an AI tool to write something, it's making assumptions on like what words or group of words are likely to come after this group of words, right?
Yeah.
Based on the other things I know. So it's looking at a model and it's kind of making inferences. And so, having a team like yours looking at the data that's going to go into the reference model for just coming up with interesting stuff, or correct stuff. So, and we're still in the early innings of how a lot of this AI technology is going to impact advisors.
Yeah.
We may be at a scenario where in a few years, where once your data lake is built, once you have really good data in there, and you've walked the kind of handheld and AI tool through, as let's say, financial planning conversations and so forth, you might be able to in the future just say go, right? And have
Hmm.
confidence that something good is going to come out of that, and then you can
Yeah.
add some color on it afterwards. But we might not be there yet. Um, when I was on the site, one of the things that you'll notice if you do go to the Milemarker website, and that'll be all linked up in the show notes, is you hover over each team members. Like if you go to like the leadership team page, you'll see each person transform into a Lego character. I love it. So first of all, I'm a huge fan of like playfulness and whimsy.
Yeah.
I always say it
Thanks.
makes you more approachable. It makes the business like people like feel like, oh, okay, I don't have to be too
Yeah.
stiff when talking. These people are gonna, relax and so forth. So I got a couple of questions on that.
Sure.
One is, how'd you go about choosing the Lego figure, which was the best comp for yourself and each person? Like, what, did you let AI pick your Lego, or did you guys
yeah.
each? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So here's the prompt, and this is super fun. I actually started doing this with my kids.
Okay.
And I first, the most neutral creature to do this with, and creature, reason I say it, is our dog. I have a dog named
Okay.
Nacho. And
Okay.
so I just
Great
took a
name.
picture of Nacho and put it into, I think it was Dolly at the time. I've used Midjourney. You kind of use all these things, but like I put it into Dolly and I said, hey, turn this picture into a Lego character. And it's super fun. It's actually a fun thing to do with if you have kids, to spend some time and like do that. And then eventually you put each other's pictures into this, which people feel differently about their image being used in AI in any context.
Sure.
So you got to be really respectful of that. But we just did that for fun. And I did a few of those and we went to a team retreat. I'm like, hey guys, I made these if you guys are interested in the version
That's
of you
awesome.
in AI. And everybody's kind of like, that's kind of cool. And it was so good, like in terms of how well it was making these and just the fun that it put into that. So we decided to do that for everybody. And,
That's fantastic. I love it.
and yeah.
And look, I was going to say, like, what's awesome about it is it's a natural parallel, right? Because you as a team, and maybe this is where your brain was at, but you're dealing with building blocks, right? For technology, and we're trying to get data to talk to each other and be more useful. So I guess it leads me to a question as we're kind of rounding third base here, heading for home. Is what do you see as the core building blocks for RIAs to be effective in 2025 and beyond? Right, we're getting towards the end of the year here. You clearly they have some key technology, CRM, whatever. But like, what do you think are the kind of be the core building blocks going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an imperative that you're adding a data, some sort of data storage. Some people are probably doing it locally because they're afraid. I can assure you that the security that's being used in the cloud is superior to whatever you have in your closet at your office.
Yeah.
And so I think having that is going to be really imperative. I think you're starting to see that you have now redundancy in some of the systems, especially as you're doing M&A or even recruiting advisors. Now I used to just be in Wealthbox, but now I've got Redtail. Now I've got Salesforce because I keep bringing these people over. Do I make them move systems, or can we make it so they can stay in this bespoke system that at least bespoke to us, like smart, like Smart Office or something like that, that's less common when the broader RIA channel. Do I have to move all of it? No, you don't have to. Like Milemarker can help you connect all of that so you see it in a single pane of glass, but you're not having these advisors have to rework how they've done things. You're lowering the bar to be able to do business with you, and then you can start to simplify and move people over to that path. And you can, like, there's so many solutions, like, where it's just preference based. Like, I want to have the tools. I'm a craftsman. I want to have the right tools for my trade, and you will have different ones in your toolbox, and that's okay. But how do we start to bring that together into one unified experience without us all compromising and being disappointed that I can't use FP Alpha because you don't have it on your approved list?
Yeah.
And so, like, there's sorts of, that's the scenario we see a lot, but it starts with having your data together and then starting to unify the experience around that at the home office level. And then being able to give that agency back in a way.
That is such an important thing that you just brought up that I had not even remotely considered. Is employees have preferences, right? We all have preferences for the tools or the paintbrushes we use or whatever. In my industry, it's like, we're using a solution called DaVinci Resolve for all our editing and post-production work. Yeah. But a lot of people are using Adobe stuff, and some people are using Final Cut and other solutions. And by the way, if you're an advisor rolling your eyes, it's okay, it's fine. but like, there's no reason why you couldn't use those if the data was set up so it could be hooked up appropriately, right? We've got all the original files or whatever. And the same is true. You're talking about using a variety of different CRMs or financial planning tools or whatever. If you acquired an advisory business and brought them over, Are you going to force them to all migrate? Or you're like, hey, listen, it works great. So long as the data gets into our data lake and we can all pull from the data. And for some reason you get hit by a bus and an advisor has to take over and they're going to use their preferred solution.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. No, it changes how everything works in a really wonderful way, because everybody gets what they want. They want the control and the data
Yeah.
at the home office level for compliance, but you want to be able to use the tooling that's important to you. Obviously, this takes a little bit of everybody kind of getting used to the new environment that exists, but it's very much the future. And I can't tell you how many people I know have joined firms and they're like, well, now I've got to use this computer I don't like. I got to deal with this,
Yeah.
this system, and this system is, and like I've actually accidentally tricked myself into taking a job instead of finding a partner that
Yeah.
actually can transform how I work. And it's been so fun for us to see our customers that are recruiting advisors be able to better serve them,
Yeah.
because now you can have more control and you're more wholly empathetic in the way that you work. And it's what you should be looking for if you're looking to join another firm.
Yeah.
Are you investing in data? Are you investing in workflows that don't feel like work? Are you helping, what's the time to hear back from you if I request something? Is it like a modern customer service experience, or is it just some like really antiquated old broker dealer model? And I think that's going to be really what separates the future here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love it. I love it. And, the war for talent is ongoing. We've talked about this so many times on the show, but talk to an advisory firm that's growing who isn't trying to recruit more talent, right? Look,
Right.
they don't exist, right? You're always looking to
Right.
bring on good people, and good people want to work where the resources are best, right? They want to work for a tech forward company, a company that's got its stuff together, if you will. Well, we only got a couple minutes left here, but I want to close out on a kind of a fun note, because I always encourage people to go check out and listen to, read, or watch some of the content that our guests are putting out, right? Like, you want to learn more, but you want to get smarter about this. You and the team have a podcast, The Connected Advisor, and a newsletter that you publish both of those regularly. So I highly encourage listeners and viewers to go check out both, and I'll make sure they're linked up. How are you finding that each of these regularly produced assets are providing value for Milemarker as a firm, and each of you as an individual, right? Like I said, each of you as an individual. If Kyle were here, he'd be
Yeah.
But no, like, because I get value out of producing podcasts, and I know what mines are. But what are some of your what are you guys getting there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly just my own musings a little bit on my newsletter, but I think it hopefully inspires other people to rethink how they work. This week, I'm kind of talking about Australian actors and the propensity for success in a closed ecosystem and why that happens and what that means for our industry. Like, that's what my Friday newsletter is going to be about. Spoiler alert.
That's awesome.
This will probably come out. That'll probably come out a little bit before the podcast, I imagine. But that's where my mind's at. Like, I really want to be thinking about these things and synthesizing things that are happening in the broader world to where we're at, and how do we really challenge the status quo here. Kyle's really spending time on the Connected Advisor podcast to unpack where advisors are at today and where they really want to go. Like, what's the truth there? What's not in these broad surveys that we get?
Yeah.
How do these unique businesses, how do they evolve and change in the way that they need to serve their clients and to become more valuable for all their stakeholders?
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I agree with you. It helps you articulate your thoughts better. Like, the more you talk about something, the more whether you're writing it down or speaking it out, you get your thoughts together. And then you also develop a style, and it people start resonating with it. People are coming out to check. Oh, Jud just published a new newsletter. I want to read it because I can hear his voice when I'm reading the newsletter or when I'm listening to him on a podcast or whatever. It really does help. I think it's great. So if you're not doing one, make sure you're doing one in the audience.
Yeah, for sure.
Where else can people follow you along? You're active on LinkedIn. Or you're active anywhere else where people are like, hey, if I need more mainlining of Jud in my system?
I think I'm sort of still on X. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just signed up for Blue Sky.
Yeah, I'm on Blue Sky. Follow me over there too.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know how to even tell you your handle on Blue Sky at this point, but like,
that's
there's
a problem.
There's that, but like, I think we're largely on LinkedIn and just working to become more and more integrated and just doing a better job of communicating in general. But like, I'm proud to be part of this industry. I think it's got a lot of really wonderful things it does for people. And we're so excited about how to help propel it forward and into this next realm.
Perfect. Well, Jud, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been great.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for listening to and or watching this episode of the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. It's always fantastic to have you with us. Huge props to my man, Jud Mackrill, for coming on the show. I learned a lot. I hope you learned a lot. I'm kind of like excited to nerd out about this type of stuff more. It really is pretty interesting to think about like all this investment we've made in technology. And then it's like, oh, I need to learn how to use it so that it benefits the business to the fullest. I've over-indexed on technology. Let's get it talking to each other. So really cool stuff that the Milemarker team is working on. As always, if you have a question or a suggestion for a guest on the show, as I mentioned, please do hit me up. And if you haven't done so already, give us a follow. And lastly, make sure you're being nice to each other. We'll see you next time on the Modern Financial Advisor podcast. Bye.